another edition of JK Takeaway. This is where I pull back the curtain a little bit on some music that I've written and just go through it track by track, what I was thinking, what I was trying to accomplish, and hopefully gives you some takeaways in your own life, whether you're a composer or just a fan of music. So we're going to go through a main theme for a game I recently wrote called Gone Viral. Now, Gone Viral is really interesting. Much like Super Tofu Friends, this is not a style of music I normally write. And so it stretched me and it was very fun to do. But again, it really took me to a different place that I might not normally write. So I enjoyed it. Gone Viral is by guys I used to work with, again, at Carbine. And they've now made this game. And Doug and Jeremy are at a company called Skullbot Games. So they founded Skullbot Games. And what they're doing is they've created this game that is set in post-apocalyptic future, but it's like this game show and it's chaotic and violent. It's really fun. It's challenging. It's very addicting. And they wanted something that was grungy and sort of just felt like this had a vibe of Prison Riot, but also had a vibe of game show, which sounds complicated, and it actually was a little bit complicated to try and get that formula right. So we're going to play through the main theme, and I'll break down how I did this and what I was thinking at the time. All right, so let's take a listen. Okay, so that would loop and loop and loop. So it doesn't just end like that, although kind of a cool ending. But that would ultimately just loop and loop around. So there's not a whole lot of layers here, but I just wanted to go through it and talk about how this happened. Again, the key being game show, Prison Riot, grungy, post-apocalyptic. So we wanted it to feel intense. We wanted it to feel a little bit oppressive, a little bit like, man, this is bigger than you. Your life is on the line, but yet also make you want to rise to the challenge. So a couple ways that I tried to accomplish that. The first thing I wanted to do was start it off with what I call the inmates. And so there's a crowd chanting, kill, 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 which sounds like this. I just took that from a sound effect file that I had. They happened to be a crowd chanting kill. So what I did was I wanted to take that and I wanted to open up as the logos are rolling in the beginning of the game. You just kind of hear from underneath this kill, kill. And then I also brought in this pounding, like they're pounding on their cells or they're pounding on the floor. As the music starts, I keep it going for a while, but I also start to fade it out. That was the tone I wanted to start with, was this sort of intimidating chant. And then we get into some of these bass lines. So that's kind of the main idea, this I listen to a lot of game show music, but there's one thing I really noticed about a lot of game show music is it has syncopated, exciting rhythms to it. So again, there's some chromatic elements in there, which also is kind of a cool version, or a cool thing in game show music. These kind of like little chromatic things that happen to kind of make it feel jazzy and upbeat and exciting. I couldn't do jazz, but I did want to have some of these off the beaten path chromatic tones that made it feel, again, just dark and maybe otherworldly. So in the key of E minor, we have E, G, A sharp, B. So we have this little chromatic leading tone here on this riff. And it just sounds kind of cool. It gives it a little bit of, with the rhythm and with the chromaticism, gives it a little bit of excitement. And then we start here again, and I E, G, but then I leap up to a major 7th and with the D sharp here. And again, I wanted to kind of provide some tension and excitement as we do this chromatic leap, or this leap up followed by a little chromatic step down, and then up to E and then G. So I liked that sound, but it wasn't quite enough for me. So I also layered in this sound. Again, just distorted, almost like a burnt wire kind of sound. It's thin, but it has a lot of grit. And when you put them together, it's a good foundation. So that's the foundation of just that theme and that riff and the bass line. And then there's a lot of percussion going on right here. So let's take a look here. I started with just a kit, like a drum kit. So I'm just accenting that rhythmic in the melody, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, da, and just a shaka, 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 shaka. Again, another little game show trope I borrowed from is just kind of this 16 note, like exciting kind of. Sometimes it's a shaker, sometimes it's hi-hat, sometimes it's something else, but just providing this constant sort of push in the 16 note pattern. And then what I did is I left all the big hits to these toms, using some toms from Damage. So when I put these toms together, we get this. Just boomy accents on that rhythm, okay? And added with the drum kit. Not a whole lot of pulsing rhythm because I have so much going on with the synthesizers that I'm going to get to in a second, but I also wanted it to feel spatial, right? You're in this prison. I wanted it to have this kind of hit, boom, and then I just hit the microphone, boom, and then you have this breath, and then it hits again, and then breath, and it hits again. So I kind of wanted to get into that relentless pulsing of a rhythm, and then you pull back, and then a rhythm and a pull back. Okay, now I wanted to make sure I provided some sort of harmonic structure or context, okay? And so I'm using this choir sound. I call it club choir. It's kind of like a trancey sort of pulsing, reversed, rhythmic, vocalized, synthetic vocalized sound. Which is a little strange by itself in this setting, but with everything else it worked. And then I have this going on. Very, again, kind of retro. When you put those two together, yeah, and I'm just rocking between an E minor and a G minor, which is strange. The G minor bringing in that B flat, so E minor has the B natural. But again, I feel like using those two chords together to rock back and forth provided this real sort of darkness that I thought was important to bring out in this game. So when you put the chanting with the harmonic texture and the drums, we're going to leave off the guitars again. This is where we land for all that other stuff. So pretty good, but I was missing just this element of over the top grunginess, of prison floor, sort of prison riot, grunge, dirt. And so I knew guitars needed to be part of it. So we started adding in the guitar doing the riff with a couple different, you can see over here, I'm using a couple different guitar rig from Native Instruments, which I love. So I'm using this guitar rig. It's called Octavish, the setting. Here's what that sounds like. Interestingly enough, here's it without the guitar rig. It's pretty thin sounding. I wasn't running through any pedals or anything. It's just kind of a pure electric guitar that I use. But then I don't have like a really great rig set up at home, so I had to use synthetic modeling here, and but I felt like it did the job here. So that one, but then I felt like it wasn't quite enough. I was still missing some. So let me just play it with that. So pretty good. I like that. So I went back in and I picked another guitar rig. This is called Van Crunch. And here's what that sounds like. Something that really bit a little bit more. So now, if I take that off again, and then here's it with it. That's a little bit of bite to it. Didn't fill out the body much, but it did give it a little bit of bite and attack, which I really felt like I needed to push that more. And then here, all I'm doing on this channel for the guitar is just accenting that E to G part of the melody, and so I wanted that to feel like it was a landing spot. So if you take that away and put it back into everything else, you can really hear how that brings out the melodic movement from the E to the G and makes it feel like it's an arrival point rather than something that's not as important. So, all right. So in this one, I just did A-B. I just did a first section and a second section, and then that loops back around over on top of itself. So in this second section, I just went straight ahead beat with the drum kit. You'll hear here. Using BFD. And so, but then I'm also augmenting it with some toms. And then I bring in one of my favorite patches. I use this all over WildStar. I just love this patch. I don't know why. I mean, I think I know why. But, man, this nitrous bass is one of my favorites. It's from Omnisphere. And here's what it sounds like. Now you notice I'm taking off quite a bit of this low end here. Here's without the EQ. It sounds great with just by itself, but when I put it in the mix with everything else, it really started to muddy up. So I had to carve out this low end. This is a synth bed, just providing some harmonic texture. Again, this is out of Contact, and this is called Bravo, Project Bravo. And it's called the Grid Pad out of Project Bravo. Project Alpha and Project Bravo, I think, are fantastic. So I use them both quite a bit, and they're great. So on top of that, that's where I wanted to bring in it didn't have to be melodic, but it needed to be something that still captured our attention. And that's where we have this. So you can see here, it's just E to B over the E minor, E to C, E to C sharp, E to D. And so that chromatic rising. So you can hear it go up, and it provides this tension, this ascent over everything else. It provided just a really nice build emotionally and harmonically. So we're going to take out the guitars again for a second, and here's where we are. Here's the reason I bring in the club choir here is because I need to, this is all going to loop back around, right? So this is the loop you hear in the game, is just this section right here. So for this to feel natural, the club choir was such a sound that stuck out. So if I didn't have it, if I didn't reintroduce it here, what would happen is at the end, it pops back in when it loops around, and there's an obvious sort of like loop point because all of a sudden something appears that was pretty obvious that wasn't there before. And so I brought it back here to make that loop feel a little bit more seamless. We get acclimated to that sound again, and then it doesn't feel as jarring when it comes back around. So sometimes if you're making loops, it's really important to make sure that if there's an instrument that has a very unique sonic quality to it, try to fade that in or introduce that towards the tail end of the loop so that when it comes back around, it matches up with the beginning and we don't feel like we've been kind of slapped in the face with a wet fish a little bit sonically. I don't need this melody here anymore because I'm in this B section, so I just needed big guitar chords. So here's what we have. Okay, and then I did add this too. All that is just on that on that chromatic little walk down. I wanted to punch it out. So I added another little guitar. So these are 3 different guitar tracks, 3 different amp modeling plugins working together just again to give it a thicker sound. You can see I'm panning them over here. You can see I'm panning them differently, again, to create a little bit more of a wall of sound. And then when we loop back, I have to reintroduce this da-dum-bum-bum-bum, and it's going to loop back around to the downbeat back here. Let's take a listen to this second section, how it loops back. And that's how we loop around. That is Gone Viral, the main theme. And thank you for sticking around and for listening. We'll see you next time on JK Takeaway.